Eduardo Valdés-Hevia is a horror artist that has recently documented several anomalous diseases. These afflictions are incredibly unordinary, even to the point that some doctors and patients believe the causes to be of supernatural origin. In this video, we'll be investigating these strange diseases and interviewing the attending physician who witnessed and documented them firsthand, Eduardo Valdés-Hevia. Without further ado, let's journey into the nightmarish medical afflictions contained within the VALDEVIA. Entry 1. Chypra Infant. Alterations of small areas of the human genome can have drastic effects. Inducing the expression of the BAR116 region of the HOXD genes induces body differentiation only seen in the highly specialized mammal limbs of bats and colugios. Examples like this one are rare but notable. This is the transcription that sits beside the image of a genetically modified human baby born in the New Dunwich Medical Center. The father was nowhere to be found during delivery. The mother died during childbirth. Only after the mother had passed away did the physicians realize the incredible condition of the newborn. As a result, no one at the facility was able to garner any information about why, how, or who genetically modified this fetus. When parts from different species are mixed, rarely do they result in offspring with such cleanly arranged and functional anatomy. Usually, the combination of several different beings results in a haphazardly assembled organism that yearns only for death. Trust me, been there, done that. However, in this case, it led to a living, viable, and kind of adorable offspring. As is always the case for editing DNA, the effects of inducing the expression of this region of the gene resulted in more than one change to the subsequent being. The ears are pointed like that of a bat, or sexy elf girl, and the teeth are pointed like that of a bat, or sexy possum girl. Alright, I'm sorry, I'll stop. To tell us more about this future superhero/circus freak, depending on how hot they become in adulthood, is the physician who delivered the freak baby, Eduardo Valdés-Hevia. What other instances do you think a modification of a similar gene would cause something similar to this?
To make it functional and living would have to be like a really big coincidence, first of all. But I could see the modifications of similar genes causing like other specialized structures that you wouldn't see in humans. Fin-like structures, different configuration of limbs, digitigrade limbs, that sort of thing.
What do the typical examples of these gene modifications look like?
Typical examples would probably look a lot more tame. You don't see that many changes all at once, but if you get really unlucky and you get that many changes all at once, well, bat baby. You know, other than the obvious symptoms, like you just mentioned, like the fucking bat baby, are there any other symptoms that this child might have? That would be hard to tell just as a baby. You could see some other bat-like things appearing. Maybe if it screeches really hard, you might see in the dark.
Do you think like a human that was structured like this would actually be able to fly?
Most likely not. You would need enormous wings to be able to fly at our weight, especially an adult's weight. Or this kid would need hollow bones, which I don't know. I don't know if he came with hollow bones. We'd have to check. I feel like that would have other issues. You ever see a bird fly into a window? I feel like that'd be bad if it was a person. You know, in humans, we call that osteoporosis. If that kid grows up to be really old and have a bunch of osteoporosis, maybe then it can fly.
That sounds like a really depressing Marvel movie, but I would watch it. Where would you see this being fitting in society?
It's either a sensational thing where everybody goes see the marvelous bat baby and it kind of becomes a circus freak, or guy has so much complex with his weird wings that he just goes off to live in a cave. Eat bugs, maybe?
Sounds like a nice life for anyone.
Yeah, I'd do that.
Follow-up question. We got the world's governments to agree to this. You have the sole ability to determine whether or not this thing has rights, or if we just call it a dirty animal. So...
I think we can give him some rights.
Some rights, so not completely.
As a treat.
Entry 2. Bone molars. Calcium hyperproficiency is a rare complication of vitamin D deficiency, where excess calcium from bone resorption forms complex structures resembling primary teeth. Neoformed teeth grow on different bones, such as this patient's hands, causing fractures and joint dysfunction. A patient was admitted to the New Dunwich Medical Center with complaints of irregular hand lumps growing around his body and extreme pain. Upon initial examination, these lumps were thought to be aggressive bone growth. Following admission, the doctors noticed that several of the newly grown bones were protruding from the skin. An X-ray revealed that rather than being an overgrowth of already existing bone, these were teeth that had taken root in various places along the patient's skeleton. I'm no dentist, but I don't think that's where teeth are supposed to be. Drink lots of milk, they said. You'll get big, strong bones, they said. I'm far too stupid to possibly know the ramifications of any of this. So we have one doctor that claims the tooth fairy isn't real, but insists on keeping all the extra teeth.
What would the treatments be for this condition?
I mean, the first treatment would be correcting the vitamin deficiency. That's pretty easy. The hard treatment is getting all those teeth out. Probably a lot of surgeries. Not great for the bones who've been affected, so you can imagine a lot of screws.
Are the teeth in any way distinct, other than they're in different bones, from ones that grow in the mouth?
They would be less perfectly formed. They're not formed according to a very specific pattern like we got in the mouth. More like maybe tiled teeth, a little more frail, a little bit shittier.
Are there any other warning signs or risk factors for the condition that we know of?
It always starts with weird itching. By the time you notice, there's teeth that are starting to poke out from your skin. Something's growing from the inside, and it's too late. It's too late. You already got it.
What do the extreme late stages of bone molars look like?
It can get pretty bad. I don't think we've seen any case where the entirety of a body is covered, because it's usually more localized to a specific part of the body. But you could see something like a good chunk of a limb, a big patch like in the chest, an entire leg maybe. That's when it gets really bad.
If I get this, do I go to a bone doctor or a dentist?
You need both in the room. They need to collaborate on this. They don't see eye to eye, so you might see some fights in the OR.
You claim the tooth fairy is not real, and yet you keep all the teeth.
Hey, it's a collection, okay? It's a serious collection.
Where's the collection? All I see is a pile of coins.
I won't show you.
Okay. Would you rather have teeth instead of hair, or hair instead of teeth?
Both awful. I think teeth instead of hair, because you don't have to cut it. So you just get a big brush, clean it up. Hair in my mouth is the most horrible sensation, so I choose the big head of teeth.
Entry 3. Watermelon Parasetism. 2 cases of watermelon seeds sprouting inside human intestines were reported in a recent article. Both resulted in a serious bowel obstruction that had to be cleared with surgery. It is unknown how the plants were able to survive and thrive inside the digestive tract, with the authors suggesting a previously unknown facultative parasitism in watermelon plants. A patient was admitted to the New Dunwich Medical Center with a distended abdomen, complaining of gastrointestinal pain. What was initially believed to be a buildup of waste or gas was anything but, shocking the staff upon initial x-ray. Okay, whoever told me that a watermelon wouldn't grow in my tummy if I swallowed the seed is a damn dirty liar. It appears that these fruits have a more insidious strategy than the typical grow in the ground thing that plants typically do. The watermelon grew inside this patient, likely using both their flesh and blood, as well as their waste as fertilizer to grow. The environment of a human body, while somewhat hostile, has a plethora of nutrients and vitamins, so if the seed could avoid digestion and somehow take root, it would have plenty to grow with.
Nature is just so beautiful sometimes. I mean, not right now. This makes me want to eliminate all natural foods from my diet and survive only on McNuggets and plastic, but I don't know, lick a rock or something.
It's unknown if other fruits have a similar strategy of occasional parasitic reproduction, because just now thinking about it, I'm fairly confident I could shit out a strawberry, maybe even an apple, but when it's time to shit out a watermelon, that's definitely when it's hospital time. Maybe people just don't know most of the time, because most fruits are easy to shit out. Also, next time someone says they grew the fruit themselves, just be extra sure you know what that means, because they could have just shit that thing out. For more information on this, I'm gonna go harass the correspondent.
Before we get started, would you like some watermelon? I grew it myself.
I'm pretty full actually. Maybe later.
Do you believe that a watermelon grown inside a human would be different in any way from one grown in the ground?
It's eating something different. It's getting its nutrients from a different source. So probably be redder. I think it would taste a little bit fleshy. Not that I've tried.
Oh god. All right. Are there any recorded instances of this happening with any other fruits, or are like watermelons kind of evil?
It's just the watermelons. The watermelons are specifically evil and they want to mess with people. Yeah.
What are the consequences of growing a watermelon inside the human body?
Imagine a pregnancy, but it's like way higher up, and at the end, you got a nice ripe fruit. Isn't that nice? Oh yeah, you can't get it out the normal way. So it either blows through your intestines or you need to get it out the surgical way. So it would be a C-section, definitely.
Do I get to keep the C-section melon?
Yeah, I mean, it's yours. You grew it. I don't think they can legally take it away from you.
What's the biggest fruit you think you could shit out in one piece without surgery?
Maybe up to an apple. Not a really big apple, though.
Are you sure he didn't just kind of shove it up in there and he's like, oh, I swallowed a watermelon seed. I don't know how this happened.
A guy would need some powerful intestines to get it all the way up to near the stomach. So if that were the case, I would applaud the guy because got some guts.
Entry 4. Hyperacculia. Hyperacculia is a condition where stem cells in the eyes reactivate, producing a series of smaller, false eyes inside the vitreous body. The pseudoocular structures accumulate over time, leading to blindness. Eventually, the pressure created by their growth can be enough to burst through the iris and cornea. The latter was the description coinciding with a recent case of the anomalous disease, hyperacculia. The patient in question had ignored the pain and symptoms with this affliction, even past the point that it caused him to go blind in the afflicted eye. Only after the flesh in his pupil began to burst did he go to the emergency room. In the following operation, surgeons were not able to save his eye. 17 fully formed pseudo-eyes of various sizes were removed from the patient, unfortunately, none of which could be fitted to replace his actual eye. The patient had been placed quite low on the donor list.
But don't worry, he's got his eye on it. Huh? Okay, I'll leave.
For more information about this case, we go to one doctor who I was able to bribe with half a pack of cigarettes.
What are the treatments, if any, for this condition?
You need to get those eyes out before they multiply too much. And you need to do that when it's pretty early because those eyes will have essentially taken over so much of the space within the eye that there's just not enough fluid in there. So even if you remove them, the eye is going to be deflated, so you don't have any pressure inside. If you don't catch it really early, it's probably blindness.
Are there any warning signs or risk factors for this condition? Or is this horrifying thing completely random?
Pretty random. You need to be really unlucky. If you start seeing strange bubbles in your vision, that's probably a good sign to get it checked.
I'm okay. Could one potentially grow one of the pseudo-eyes to be a replacement for the one destroyed by the condition, or are they completely vestigial?
They're pretty much vestigial. They don't have a connection to the ocular nerve, which is pretty vital for an eye. And it's not like you can remove an eye up to the nerve and just connect it to a new one, because, you know, it's like pre-made circuitry. You can't just like slap on some new cables and expect it to work. The retina is part of the nerve, so you can't just plug in a new eye, unfortunately.
Could it just continue to leak eyeballs if you didn't treat it?
I mean, after it bursts, it's kind of a countdown until it gets infected and some bacteria gets in there and eats all of it. I don't think we've seen any case that has gotten that far.
If an eye came out of your eye, would you eat it?
Maybe one, out of curiosity.
Entry 5.
What? How do I say this?
Verukus Carcinoma retrovirus. VCRV is a virus that uses reverse transcription to insert its genome into the host cells. In rare cases, this process is unclean, and the resulting viruses may carry fragments of the host's DNA, passing it on to the next animal they infect. In the next host, the foreign DNA is inserted into the genome, which can end up causing a cancer that expresses genes from a completely different species. VCRV usually creates similar cancers to papillomavirus around the mouth and throat. In this case, a dog was infected by its human owners, leading the carcinoma to express human Hox genes that regulate the growth of fingers. An anomalous disease similar to HPV first popped up in the New Dunwich Medical Center. Strangely, someone had decided to bring their dog to the human emergency room, but due to the additional fingers on its face, the doctors decided to admit it on the basis that it had at least some human parts. The physicians examined the animal, but unfortunately, the finger tumor that was on its face was the least of its worries. Even with the removal of this and other finger tumors along with chemotherapy treatment, the cancer was too aggressive, too rapidly developing. Unfortunately, with no cure, the dog would be entirely fingers soon.
Or something goofy like that.
I kept telling people, next week I'm gonna make my fursona live on stream. And everybody was like going crazy, thinking I was gonna make a fursona. And that was my fursona. It was the dog with a human finger tumor. They were very disappointed.
I think that it's a great fursona.
And technically the fursona is a virus itself, but, you know.
I've heard a lot of people on message boards say the same thing, but then they said stuff that concerned me. What are the treatments, if any, for this condition?
It's just like any other tumor. And in most cases, it will just look like a regular tumor. It has to be a really specific and rare set of circumstances where the virus captures a bit of foreign DNA and inputs it into the target's genome, essentially, to create these weird foreign structures. And in those cases, if it's creating foreign structures that aren't part of the body, those tumors would actually have a harder time growing because the immune system will target them more because it's seeing those are human fingers. That doesn't make sense in a dog. So it will target that as a foreign body. That will give it less chances to grow, but it can still grow. And yeah, treatments as any of these tumors, you need to remove them. You might need radiation, you might need chemotherapy, depending on how bad it gets.
Does the dog have any control over the new digits that are grown in its face, or are these completely vestigial?
I feel like there would be some muscle movement, but not something that can really be controlled. It would be more like twitching.
This example is human and dog. Can any two animals that can get this kind of cancer transfer one gene to the other?
Basically, yeah. It's free gene therapy.
Could they be implanted onto a human hypothetically if they got lost a finger? And if they do that, is that essentially just trading cancer for a finger?
Not really. In that specific case, what we get is the Hox genes, which are the genes that essentially instruct the body to create certain structures. In this case, a finger. But we also saw it on the bat baby. The bat baby is also a modification of the Hox genes. Okay, in that case, it creates a wing. The cells inside the fingers are still pretty much entirely dog cells, except for that little bit of human DNA that was put into them. They're basically dog cells that have been instructed to create a finger with whatever they got. So if you put that in a human, it would be recognized as different animals so that the immune system would target it. You might be able to, but you would need like to have this person on like really, really strong immunosuppressants, just like when you put things like a pig heart as a heart transplant, which has been done.
If I ate the finger bowl, would it be cannibalism or eating a dog?
It would be eating a dog with a 0.01% of cannibalism.
I can live with that. Or is it worse?
It's slightly worse than eating a dog, but not as bad as full cannibalism, I would say. You would need St. Peter or whoever judges these to put that in the sin tier list.
I'm okay. I'm Jewish. I'll escape.
Entry 6. Angioradiculoma. Oh wow, I could say that one. Angioradiculoma is a rare type of cancer in the blood vessels, which grow and harden in root-like formations. The growths will often pierce the skin or surrounding organs, leading to bleeding, infections, and other complications that further impact its deadly prognosis. This disease, often unkindly called Groot syndrome, is a fatal anomalous affliction that was also first discovered at New Dunwich Hospital. The disease only begins with slight discomfort, sometimes associated with certain movements. The pain will increase in the afflicted area indefinitely. Oftentimes, the victims don't know the root cause of the pain is a cancer until they go in for examination, as the sharp pains involved mimic many other chronic pain conditions. The hardened blood vessels will slice through the skin and vital organs, and since the source of the blood flow is what's causing the injury, there's nothing that can be done to aid the patient surviving this process.
What would be the treatments, if any, for this condition?
You need to remove those, and you need to go early, because if you don't, they'll just keep growing and spreading, and it'll get real bad, because those are your blood vessels, and if your blood vessels hardens into a solid structure, the blood can't go in there anymore. So your nutrients and oxygen can't get to your actual healthy tissue, which will start rotting, and you will slowly just lose your circulation. If it starts in your hand, fingers will soon start falling off. Soon that'll spread to the rest of your hands. You might need amputation if it gets bad enough.
So it's usually localized to one area and then spreads?
Usually starts in one area, yes. Depends on your area. The symptoms might be quite different. So if we talk about a limb, worst thing that can happen is, yeah, it'll start rotting and you'll start losing the limb. If it's like near your vital organs, you know, those hard structures might start piercing stuff. And then you might start getting like real bad prognosis all of a sudden. common.
Have there ever been any instances of this condition in which it pierces the skin and because it's a blood vessel, like it just leaks out from there?
Oh, it can definitely happen. If you're talking about like a bigger blood vessel, because a smaller one will easily just like harden entirely and just become essentially like a tiny little spear. A larger one, to fully like fuse it, it would need to grow a ton. If you imagine like a bigger blood vessel, which transports a lot more blood, has a harder time like fully closing up like that. If it pierces the skin and just opens up, it can start spurting a bunch of blood, which can be really bad.
Entry 7. Monodontia. Monodontia, commonly known as tombstone teeth, is a rare condition where adult teeth grow fused into a single block. No cure exists apart from complete excision and replacement with dentures, which this patient is undergoing. The causes of monodontia are unknown, but it is thought to be the result of a combined effect of susceptible genetics and infections happening at an early age, affecting the growth of the teeth. Monodontia is another affliction discovered within the halls of the New Dunwich Medical Center. The strange condition causes all of the teeth in the patient's mouth to combine into a single chip clip-like monstrosity. While the root cause of this affliction is yet unknown, why it's an issue is the thing that's yet unknown to me. Like, what exactly is the problem with having one big tooth? I know it's weird, but I bet it can chew good. Seems like it's better than a bunch of little ones. You'd never have to floss, and you only have to brush one tooth. Why have many Cheez-Its when you can have just one Cheez-Them? I get it for aesthetic reasons. I'm just asking the questions that the insurance companies will to try and weasel out of coverage. To answer my many stupid questions, I have kidnapped the same doctor.
Is it possible to live with untreated monodontia?
Imagine you get a cavity or a tooth infection. That's going to affect the whole thing. Your two options are, I'm just going to remove it entirely, get dentures, and forget about the problem, or I got to take extremely good care of my teeth, because if anything happens to your one big tooth, the entire row is fucked up forever.
So is the one big tooth held in place by a lot of little gum holes, or one big gum hole?
At first, it'll still keep the shape of the individual teeth, but eventually over time, those gums would simplify into just one big gum hole.
I liked that sentence. So when pulling one big tooth, are there any precautions that you would take that you wouldn't take when pulling a bunch of little teeth?
Yeah, have you ever had like a retainer, one of those plastic things you need to put at night? Yeah.
Did not like it.
Yeah, you know how you got to pull it from both sides at once? Because if you pull it from one side, it just kind of gets stuck and it hurts.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, imagine that, but with your entire mono tooth. You got to pull it at the same distance on both sides. Otherwise, it can just mess up the entire bones.
How does monodontia affect the speech of the patient?
It doesn't affect it much. The biggest consequence socially is that this guy now has anime teeth. Everybody will point and laugh. We've had patients that come in and paint like little lines in between their teeth so that, you know, it's not that noticeable.
I thought like that you couldn't pronounce T's, and I was laughing to myself like tombstone teeth is such like a cruel name for like somebody who can't pronounce T's, like tombstone teeth.
Entry 8. Nail matrix metaplasia. Nail matrix metaplasia is a cryptogenic disease where the nail bed starts growing, transforming the surrounding skin into multiple matrices that produce their own complete nails. Though its origin is uncertain, it appears to be more common in people who bite their hangnails. Nail matrix was first discovered during a routine checkup at the New Dunwich Medical Center. The patient didn't even remark on the strange state of his left finger, and was more interested in trying to convince the doctor that drinking was in fact okay, even though he had a liver condition. The patient seemed astounded that the physicians were interested in the strange growth on his finger at all. When asked if he knew anything about his condition, he said no, but he did remark that he likes to chew his nails, including the new ones. He laughed and said it gave him a lot more to do when he was anxious. The only new development that the patient reported was that he's never been more satisfied with his ability to scratch himself. For more information on nail matrix metaplasia, we go to our field expert, who I'm not holding at gunpoint.
Is the generation of new nail matrices painful in any way?
It's not painful at first. The nail bed before the nail starts growing would definitely be like more sensitive than your regular skin. A bit sore and annoying, but not quite painful. When the nails start growing though, and they start breaking skin and creating hangnails, that is where it gets annoying and painful.
Are there any other warning signs or risk factors other than just chewing your hangnails?
Not that we know, since it's quite rare. We only know that there's this correlation with biting your hangnails, but we don't quite know how one influences the other. It's a cryptogenic disease. That means the origin is cryptic.
Are there any other side effects to this disease other than just growing more fingernails around your fingers?
Imagine I have a bunch of fingernails that are growing in different directions. Imagine just getting that caught in a door and pulling one of those fingernails back. That would be extremely painful, first of all. High risk for infection. You need to take really good care of your little fingernail pineapple so that it doesn't get a bunch of gunk under the nails. If that finger gets infected, it's probably gonna have to go.
Are the treatments just pulling the nails out? Or would that make it a lot worse?
Oh no, pulling them out would make it so much worse. If for aesthetic purposes, you do want to remove them, yes, you would need to pull them out as they come out, but that wouldn't remove the fact that underneath it's just a bunch of nail matrices. So the finger's gonna look messed up no matter what you do.
Would you rather have fingernails for teeth or teeth for fingernails?
Teeth for fingernails. Teeth for fingernails. It'll go great with my hair teeth as well.
It's true, you could tap them against each other and make a nice...
Oh, imagine the sound, yeah.
Entry 9. JPEG Compression. JPEG compression is a serious disease that impacts thousands every year. To avoid the risk of infection, refrain from touching heavily compressed images with your bare hands. What can at first seem like a minor loss of detail in your fingers can quickly spread to the rest of your body and become life-threatening. JPEG compression was discovered when one of the nurses at the New Dunwich Medical Center made the mistake of sharing a low-resolution meme. The meme, Freak Bob, a classic which will never go out of style, was compressed even further when she texted it to another associate at the hospital. And after she touched the meme with her bare hands, the compression infected the tips of her fingers. It was very minor at first, and she didn't even notice the compression itself. The next day at work, the staff noticed that she was distinctly less detailed. The nurse protested that she was fine, until she was shown her own reflection, and she couldn't make out her own facial features due to lost resolution. She was rushed to the OR, but within hours, she was nothing but muddy pixels. Pixels to pixels, data to dust. To understand more about this affliction, we go to a guy who has also seen a Freak Bob meme.
Does touching any compressed image cause this, or does it have to be within a certain format?
It has to be a specifically compressed JPEG image at a low quality that you touch directly. If it's been transformed to PNG, it lessens the effect. It's like a protective cover over the image.
What are the complications of intense detail loss in a patient?
One of the biggest things you'll start seeing is that the structures in the body that are really small and complex will start blending together into globs. So the easiest way to see this is with your hair. You know, your hair will stop being individual strands and it'll become a sort of block. In your intestines, there are incredibly small folds. Those will be affected, and we need those folds because it increases the surface of your intestine so you can absorb more nutrients. They can end up having like pretty big like nutrient deficits. That would be one of the first things you'd notice with JPEG compression.
Are there any treatments for JPEG compression?
Actually never thought about this. There are no known treatments for JPEG compression. There are some experimental treatments that are being tried, basically locking you into a chamber, listening to really, really clean audio, only being exposed to like really crisp, high quality screens. That can at least lessen it, but you know, it's still too early to tell.
Sounds like a Scientology torture chamber, but you're the doctor here, so. Was there any example of anything like this before the modern era, or is this a relatively modern disease?
There's been some scattered reports back in the 1850s about people with these really early photographies. The damage these pictures would get is different. They would get things like scratches, and through the exposures, they would lose detail and essentially get more blurry as you try to copy the image, and the small defects would get amplified, eventually get pictures that are essentially blobs of black and white. This is what has been described to happen to some photographers who work with a lot of photos.
Entry 10. Crystalline conjunctival hypertrophy. Crystalline conjunctival hypertrophy is a rare symptom of cadmium buildup in the blood. Small deposits in the conjunctiva eventually grow into large relapsing crystals that protrude out of the eye. The first sign is usually an excess of floaters in your vision. I wonder if having a cadmium crystal poke out through your eye hurts. Probably. This disease was, again, first found in the New Dunwich Medical Center. The only symptom that the patient expressed before the extreme result was having an excess of eye floaters. This is concerning, because eye floaters are usually a casual and benign part of the human experience. But now, according to that lady, it means you're about to get stabbed in the eye from the inside. It's unknown what, if anything, differentiates a regular eye floater from one that can develop into a crystalline structure, nor what can lead to the excess cadmium buildup in the blood. I'd say, if you're eating a lot of cadmium for any reason, this is probably a good time to stop that. For more information on this disease, we go to our resident expert, Dr. Eduardo Valdés-Hevia.
What do the most severe cases of this disease look like when untreated?
You can imagine the entire eye being covered in crystals of different sizes, to the point where obviously this person can't see. It's pierced or covered the entirety of your iris and your pupil, so you can't even see the structures of the eye. It's just like a big crystal.
Is there any way to tell the difference between a regular eye floater and like one that means I'm gonna get stabbed in the eye?
These floaters are crystals. They're not clumps of proteins. They're not rounded or little squiggly worms. They're more like crystalline structures. They look like little squares or hexagons.
Is it painful?
It is not painful at first. The crystals themselves growing don't cause much pain, but blinking when you have a crystal in your eye, you can imagine it'll cause a lot of damage to your eyelids, and you'll still need to blink.
Are there any treatments for this condition, or is it just kind of pulling it out?
So you need to do something called chelation, where you take the specific compound, what causes the crystals, right? You need to take that out of your blood, which is essentially like taking your blood out, passing it through a filter to specifically remove this, and then putting it back in.
Entry 11. Bone pearls. Post-mortem cross-section of a femur affected with bone pearls, also known as osteoperlomas. While initially harmless, these shimmering benign tumors can lead to major fractures. Despite this, bone pearls have been prized throughout history, leading some to induce their formation for later harvesting. Bone pearls are usually induced by injecting small calcium carbonate impurities into the bloodstream. They become embedded in the bone tissue and cause abnormal osteoblast growth, leading to osteoperlomas. Surgical induction may also be performed to obtain pearls of the desired shapes. At first, it was believed that only certain species of mollusks produce pearls. But once little Timmy's shin bone fucking exploded with what would become the new family fortune, science has had to adapt to the new reality. Bone pearls were one of the first anomalous diseases discovered in the New Dunwich Medical Center, and this affliction has existed in the public knowledge for so long that it isn't even considered anomalous anymore. Bone pearls are still used around the world in jewelry, and while it is taboo to create them artificially, many people will sell any pearls that form in their own body as a way to pay for the medical procedure that it took to remove them. Either that, or they wear them on their form as a mark of how they survived the trauma. It's like getting your teeth pulled and then keeping them in a jar on your desk, which is a normal thing to do. Bone pearls, if left untreated, can lead to paralysis and infection. To learn more about bone pearls, here's our doctor who just got done injecting a patient with what he insists isn't a calcium carbonate impurity and is just medicine.
Are bone pearls only an occurrence in humans, or do they come in other animals too?
It can happen in other animals, mammals specifically. The difference for us is that the human ones are the most valuable ones. The other ones are kind of like fakes. There's definitely been, throughout history, a bunch of attempts of passing off horse bone pearls as humans. People will try to fake anything if it's valuable. The real ones will always keep their value despite that.
Describe the process of removing a bone pearl in early history.
In early history, you would need to essentially remove the bone first, because the process of removing a bone pearl without harming the bone too much would be inconceivable at that time. If you were to induce it, or if it just happened and and you wanted to remove it, you would have to, for example, remove that leg, and then you open the bone and fish it out.
How do they do it nowadays?
I mean, nowadays there's better surgery. You will essentially locate the bone pearl, remove the pearl itself and a little bit of the tissue around it, fill that in with some cement.
Is bone pearl induction still legal?
No, it's very legal. People will still do it. It's valuable, so people will do it to themselves in an attempt to get a lot of money by selling your bone pearls if you get any good ones, or pay other people to get bone pearls if you're especially evil.
Dude, that first thing you just mentioned is like a Lovecraftian version of someone faking slipping on a puddle of pee at Walmart. Do you have any bone pearls yourself?
I can't comment on that. You know, having bone
Did you get
pearls.
them from injecting calcium into the underprivileged?
Who told you that?
Can I have some? I'll be quiet.
We'll talk after this call.
Entry 12. Argylosis. Argylosis is a rare autoimmune disorder. The soft tissues of those affected degenerate through saponification, progressively rendering them into a malleable texture, similar to clay. It ultimately leads to infectious complications that may become fatal. I don't know why you guys are complaining. Imagine if you had Play-Doh for skin. You'd never be bored again. You could build a castle out of your right man boob, and your left man boob can be the moat. In reality, this disease destroys the tissue's ability to maintain structure in any meaningful way, shape, or form. It reduces the patient to nothing but biomass. This affliction was again discovered in the New Dunwich Medical Center. The patient was admitted to the emergency room with the unknown anomalous affliction, and within 30 minutes, her flesh had shifted to the point that she no longer even resembled a human shape. Instead, a lump of flesh-colored clay with a skeleton inside. Fortunately, this was not in vain, as she has been moved to the toy chest of the pediatric wing waiting room. To understand more about the causes and effects of this disease, we go to our resident expert, who just got done making some really cool pink thing out of the weird smelly clay.
What do the most extreme cases of this condition look like?
So imagine like an entire section of your body that is essentially turned into Play-Doh. All the structures inside have become non-viable as they slowly merge into each other and become this blob. So you better hope that the section it affected wasn't any vital organs. You better hope it was something like a limb. It would be fun to play with at least.
Fun to play with, not to eat? Maybe to eat. Are there any warning signs for this condition?
It would definitely start with a slow like softening of tissue. You know how you can like pull your skin a little bit? Slowly it would just start getting worse and worse. And eventually it wouldn't like bounce back. You would pull on that skin and it would stay there.
What are the other complications for having Play-Doh for skin?
Your skin, fat, muscle, eventually even like the bone will start blending into each other. Like it removes the distinction between different tissues. They all become this one single tissue. So any function that was there gets broken down and disappears. Let's say you got your arm, your muscles will slowly start working. So your arm will just fall limp as it just turns into more and more of a blob.
If you had this disease, would you draw any sort of shapes on yourself?
Let me not draw shapes, but I definitely would make some cool sculptures with it. If I had it in my head, I would definitely make some cool hairdos.
Saponification is the process used to turn animal fats into soap. Does this have anything to do with your shop on Etsy?
No comments.
I just
No
noticed you're
comments.
selling a lot of soap.
No comments.
Because of the frequency and amount of anomalous diseases that pop up at New Dunwich, some have come to believe that the hospital itself has a tendency to create or attract otherworldly afflictions. Stranger still, these afflictions are entirely unheard of until their discovery at New Dunwich, at which point, cases start popping up all over the world. To get a better understanding of these diseases in the context of the documentation, we call on the hospital's resident expert, Eduardo Valdés-Hevia, one more time.
Which of these diseases has been the most threatening to humanity on a large scale?
I mean, it's all hypothetical, right? But when I made it, I was thinking
What do you mean hypothetical? What do you mean when you made it?
I mean, it's not real. You know that, right?
I set up this whole interview. What do you mean it's not real? We've been talking for an hour.
You know,
You made me look like a fool in front of all these people. Why are the macabre areas of medical study inspiring to your art?
I mean, I studied medicine, so for me, it's part of my background, and I feel like through studying medicine, seeing really gross images in my textbooks, and then going on to see, you know, what it's actually like with patients and stuff, I cured myself of most like icks. It makes it easier for me to actually like think about it in a more detached way where I can try to make horror with it. The icks I didn't get cured of. Things like parasites to me are a good example of this. As much as I studied parasites, there's still like something deeply upsetting about them to me. So I like to explore those things.
Why would you say the area of like medical hoaxes in specific are fascinating?
In society, the role of a doctor is a little bit sacred, quote unquote. We place a special trust on doctors and on medicine that when that trust is broken makes for some like really interesting stories. And using the language of medicine, you can also like get people into a state where they will trust what you're saying and they will trust that this fake thing that you're presenting, this horror story, they will fully believe it's real until they're done and they think about it for a minute. That moment when they're reading it, they believe it's real, and that's like a way to directly inject horror into your brain through the skeptic part of it.
On the topic, what would you say is the most important part to making like an effective, realistic, and believable artistic hoax piece?
You need to have a little bit of reality injected into it. If it's fully made up, it's not gonna like pass through that skeptical filter that we have in our brains. You need to have like some sort of base in reality or some comparison to real things that people might have heard of to make it feel more believable. For example, bone teeth is obviously fake, but a lot of people have heard of teratomas, which is a type of tumor that will develop things like hair and teeth. That already has people primed to thinking like, yeah, teeth growing where they shouldn't be is a thing. You can use that implicit trust as a way of getting people to believe the horror for a second.
What is it about these fears that you think makes them universal?
I think everybody's afraid of bad health. Everybody's afraid of their bodies changing in ways that they can't control. I feel like that's a primal, universal sort of fear.
If you had to catch one of these diseases yourself, which would you pick?
Oh, that's a hard one. I feel like Monodontia is the
You
least
just take
threatening
good
one.
care of it, you know?
Brush your big tooth. Simple as that. All my art has been propaganda for dental hygiene. Brush your teeth, folks. Oh God,
You had that.
I had that. I have props.
So if you had to choose one of these diseases you'd want to catch least, what would it be?
I would say, I don't know catch any of these, but probably Argyulosis. It is, or Argyulosis. I don't know how to pronounce my own words. It's kind of a gross thing to have, your own body just becoming Play-Doh.
I would definitely eat some of me just to see real quick.
Just a little pinch.
Which one of these diseases would you say is closest to reality?
Either the crystalline conjunctival hypertrophy or bone pearls. Weird crystals growing in your body due to the accumulation of bad stuff in your blood. It already happens. It's called gout. Kidney stones. Having that growing in a different part of your body, I could see that.
Has there ever been an instance where someone believed your work to the extent that it was a little bit of like an issue?
Not to the point where people have believed it for a really, really long time. I tend to get like several types of reactions. The first one, the sort of intended reaction is, oh my God, I nearly believed this. Or for a second, I thought this was real. You really scared me. But then there's a few different ways to come off of that realization. There's people who will say, oh, you scare me. That was good art. Good job. Most people will do that. Some people will get angry at being tricked. I've had some guy replying to me on social media and to people who like quote tweeted me, angrily replying like, this guy's a fake, he's spreading misinformation. He said the words, he's eroding the trust of a rational society.
You gotta love those guys because they think that everybody else 100% believes it.
Yeah. And then there's also like the longer con where the x-ray with the teeth growing from the bones. Somebody posted that to Facebook years ago. This image is from 2021, so it's been years. Slowly got spread through Facebook. At some point, I saw a dentist page on Facebook posting it like, do you think this is real? And the comments were saying like, oh, I don't think so. I think that's Photoshop. But through that, it got to like a circle of like medical influencer types. And the other day, I saw this image reposted to Threads of all places with the username something something MD, an actual doctor who's just reposting a bunch of these sorts of images without checking them. And it's like, what do you think the diagnosis is? And people in the comments are taking it seriously. I'm like, oh god, this image has escaped me. I can't do anything anymore. So sometimes an image will, like, through this process, will eventually reach the Instagram account of a guy who claims to be a doctor. I don't know if he really is, because if he really was, he would have a little bit of critical thinking, but it's all kinds of doctors.
If he's a doctor, I don't want him to be my doctor. I want to live.
Me neither.
Are you planning on inventing any new strange, horrific diseases in the future?
I'm on it right now. I'm doing a piece. It's called Pathologic Pareidolia. You know pareidolia?
No.
When you see, like, let's say a house that has 2 windows and a garage door, and it kind of looks like a face, that's pareidolia. That's when you see things that look like faces. The reason for that is your brain is so good at recognizing, categorizing faces. We have an entire part of our brain that's dedicated pretty much entirely to that. Sometimes it'll see things that aren't faces, and just through pattern recognition, it'll recognize it as a face. So I thought it would be fun if there was like a version of this that was so extreme that you saw faces everywhere, like all you see is faces.
I would never recommend anybody take drugs, but like if you're looking for inspiration for this one specific thing, I gotta say acid. Like
folks, stay critical on the internet. I'm saying this as a person who professionally lies online. People will lie to you online. So if you see something, take a second, think, okay, is this realistic? Especially in the age of AI, if you see something that you doubt, try Googling it. Don't believe the Google AI answers. Now I'll tell you about a lot of bullshit. Critically investigate it a little bit.
You heard it here first, folks. Everything you see is true.
I got an image I made that you can show in this part. It's a whole story where I was scam baiting some guy. I got this scam message on Tumblr. I get this guy who's like trying to buy the rights to my images to sell to companies. I asked examples of companies, and he said Samsung, Oxford, like the university, I guess, and iPhones, which is, I guess, a company. iPhone's the company. Anyway, I started messing with the guy. I was like, okay, what kind of images do you want to license for iPhones? I guess he saw one of like the last thing I had posted, which was the hummingbird that drinks your eye fluid. So I guess he just saw the hummingbird while scrolling. I was like, oh, any natural art photographs that you have. So he assumed I was like a bird photographer or something. So I just started sending him examples. Oh, how about this? Like weirder and weirder examples, like the flesh stone. And the guy was like, yeah, I love that. Yeah, I can definitely sell that. I wasn't replying to him for a few days. I was like pestering me. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. You know, I was on call yesterday. You see, I'm a doctor, so, you know, I was on call, so I've been really busy. Oh, we had this weird case last night. This guy came in and had teeth growing from his bones. Can you believe that? And I sent him the image, and the guy's like, oh my god, that's crazy, all caps. He tries to keep going, like, keep the scam going, but I don't let him. Next day, I reply, it was really tragic. He died on the operating table last night. It's like, oh my god, my condolences to the family. I just had him going for quite a while. And I'm like, oh, I don't think I can talk to you right now. I feel a little bit sick. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. Talk to me when you can. I replied to him like next day. I made a bespoke edit for the guy of a hand full of teeth growing, like from the outside this time. Like a really gross blackened hand full of teeth growing. I'm like, oh, I don't feel so good, like all mistyped. I'm so sorry. I don't think I can continue this. And I send him this image and he just replies, oh my god. He didn't say anything like until a couple days later. It's like, Eduardo, are you okay?
Imagine if that motherfucker was like, so you can't go to Western Union for me?
You know, generally I feel bad lying to people. With my work, I will let them have the story, but after I'll make sure they know it's not real. If this guy's trying to steal my money, it's a mosquito. You can slap a mosquito. It's trying to steal your blood. If any of you guys want to see more of my work, I got a website. You can see all of it for free, high quality. I got social medias as well, and I got a Patreon where you can support my work. Every few months, you get a little card pack if you support me, and this card pack is full of little Polaroid photos.
If you like this video, you should like, comment, and subscribe with all notifications enabled, or I'll give you a disease. Shout out the inner circle. Love y'all.